If pressure automatically produced character, then everyone who suffered would become wise. But we know that is not true. The same storm can make one person bitter and another person better. The same delay can make one person abandon purpose and another person deepen discipline. So pain alone is not a teacher. Pressure does not create your character first. Pressure reveals your government. Write that down. Your internal government is the ruling system of beliefs, convictions, fears, appetites, and habits that receives your obedience when competing voices demand a response. Fear says run. Pride says defend yourself. Anger says strike back. Purpose says remain faithful. Wisdom says wait before you speak. The question is not whether these voices appear. The question is which voice has authority. Think about an aircraft moving through calm air. While the flight is smooth, everybody looks composed. The passengers are relaxed. The cabin is quiet. Even the nervous person looks courageous because nothing has challenged their courage yet. But when turbulence begins, the atmosphere changes. Now we discover what is governing the person holding the controls. Is it panic or training? Impulse or procedure? Fear or judgment? The turbulence did not put panic into the pilot. It exposed whether panic was already capable of taking command. Are you with me? Pressure does not write the constitution of your inner life. It reveals the constitution you have already been obeying. That is why comfort can deceive you. You may appear patient because nobody has delayed you. You may appear forgiving because nobody has offended you. You may appear disciplined because nothing attractive has competed with your purpose. You may appear peaceful because everything is moving according to your plan. But appearance in comfort is not proof of government under pressure. Here is the formula. Pressure reveals government. Reflection identifies its laws. Disciplined practice changes who rules. So when the next storm comes, do not ask only, why is this happening around me? Ask a more powerful question. What is this exposing within me? Your answer may be uncomfortable, but exposure is not your enemy. It is information. It shows you where fear has authority, where impulse has influence, and where truth must be established. But this is important. Seeing what rules you is not the same as changing what rules you. Revelation is only the beginning. We must now understand why exposure and formation can never be confused. Now, turbulence may reveal that a pilot is unprepared, but turbulence does not provide the missing training. It exposes the gap. Training must follow. In the same way, pressure may reveal impatience, fear, pride, or insecurity, but revelation alone does not remove them. Exposure is not correction. Endurance is not automatically learning. And surviving a difficult season is not the same as becoming wiser through it. Some people have endured the same kind of trouble for 20 years, but they have repeated the same response every time. They still panic, they still blame, they still withdraw, they still make decisions in anger. They have experience, yes, but experience without reflection can become repetition. Years do not guarantee maturity. Practice produces maturity, and you may practice the wrong response until it becomes stronger. Here's the point. When pressure exposes weakness, do not condemn yourself. Study yourself. And expose weakness as information. It shows you where your internal government is absent, divided, or unreliable. It says this is the place where fear still has influence. This is the place where impulse still receives obedience. This is the place where truth has not yet become your standard. That revelation is a gift, but only if you use it. We normally make one of two mistakes. The first is concealment. We hide the reaction, defend it, rename it, or blame somebody else for provoking it. The second is false graduation. We say, I made it through, so I must be stronger. No. You may have escaped the storm while preserving the same weakness that endangered you inside it. Formation requires a process. Notice the response. Name the belief beneath it. Compare that belief with truth. Choose a better governing principle. Then practice that principle until obedience becomes more natural than impulse. Say it again. Notice, name, compare, choose, practice. Adversity is an examination. But an examination does not educate you merely because you sat in the room. Its value is found in what the results teach you and what you do afterward. The poor response you discovered is not your permanent identity. It is your present assignment. So accept the information without accepting condemnation. Take responsibility without surrendering hope. You can retrain what pressure revealed. But to retrain a reaction, you must go beneath the reaction. Visible behavior is only the messenger. Next, we must identify the invisible belief that has been issuing the commands. Every reaction has a ruler. Behavior does not appear from nowhere. It travels through a chain, and if you understand the chain, you can interrupt it. Write this down. A repeated thought becomes a belief. A belief becomes an interpretation. Interpretation activates emotion. Emotion urges action. Repeated action becomes a habit, and habit practiced over time develops character. So when you attempt to change the action without examining the belief, you are trimming branches while feeding the root. Your actions are the visible evidence of invisible convictions. What you believe about your identity, what you believe about control, what you believe about trust, and what you believe about responsibility will eventually appear in what you say and do under pressure. Fear has a constitution. It says, preserve safety at any cost. Insecurity has a constitution. It says, defend your worth against every question. Distrust says, control everything because nobody else can be trusted. But purpose says, let principle govern the response, even when comfort disappears. Are you with me? The pressure does not invent these laws. It activates them. Sometimes the law was written during an earlier season. Perhaps silence protected you when speaking felt dangerous. Perhaps control helped you survive an unpredictable environment. Perhaps anger prevented others from seeing your fear. Those responses may explain how you endured yesterday, but a survival mechanism can become a prison when it continues governing tomorrow. And this is where language becomes dangerous. You say, that is just who I am. No, that may be how you learn to operate. You say, I have always reacted this way. That is history, not destiny. Learned responses can be examined. Beliefs can be challenged. Habits can be retrained. Your past may explain the law, but it does not possess the authority to keep that law in office. So here is the question you must ask beneath every recurring reaction. What would I have to believe for this response to feel necessary? If criticism always produces rage, perhaps you believe correction destroys your worth. If uncertainty makes you controlling, perhaps you believe security depends entirely on you. If conflict makes you disappear, perhaps you believe honest presence guarantees rejection. Find the silent sentence. That sentence is issuing the command. Do not merely suppress the reaction. Investigate its ruler, because once you identify the belief beneath the behavior, you have located the place where renewal must begin. And the first ruler we must examine is often the quickest to seize the controls when certainty disappears. Panic. Panic is fear promoted to leadership. It is what happens when an emotion stops reporting conditions and starts issuing commands. You can recognize panic by its speed. Speech accelerates. Imagination predicts catastrophe. Daily disciplines are abandoned. Activity increases, but clarity disappears. The person is moving everywhere and going nowhere. Why? Because panic is not searching for the wisest response. Panic is searching for the fastest escape from discomfort. Beneath that reaction is a hidden belief. If certainty is disappearing, then safety, purpose, and opportunity must be disappearing with it. But uncertainty is not the same as destruction. Delay is not always denial. Resistance is not automatic proof that you are moving in the wrong direction. This is important. Emotions are real, but they are not sovereign. They can alert you, but they cannot always advise you. Fear may report that something feels dangerous, yet fear does not possess enough information to determine your destiny. A difficult conversation at work can make someone resign before reflection. A tense moment in a relationship can produce words that permanently wound a temporary conflict. A financial setback can tempt a person into a reckless decision simply because waiting feels unbearable. Slow progress can persuade another person to abandon an assignment that required more preparation. In each case, a temporary condition is permitted to issue a permanent command. So what do you do when panic reaches for the controls? You pause. Not because the situation is unimportant, but because your future is too important to surrender to urgency. First, acknowledge the feeling. Do not pretend you are not afraid. Second, separate facts from forecasts. Ask, what do I know and what am I merely predicting? Third, recover the long-term assignment. What principle, commitment, or purpose was guiding you before fear entered the room? Fourth, Delay irreversible action until wisdom has had an opportunity to speak. That pause is not weakness. It is government. Sometimes the pressure you want removed is revealing the capacity that must be developed. Sometimes the delay is teaching consistency. Sometimes the resistance is strengthening judgment. You do not have to call every difficult moment good, but neither should you call every difficult moment failure. Say this aloud. My feelings may speak, but they do not receive final authority. Let fear provide information, but never let it write policy. Let principle take the controls. And remember, fear does not always make a person frantic. Sometimes fear becomes quieter, more respectable, and more difficult to detect. Sometimes it disguises itself as the need to control everything. Control often looks like strength because it is busy, decisive, and demanding. But compulsive control is frequently fear wearing a uniform. Under pressure, the controlling person begins managing everybody. They refuse assistance because help requires trust. They demand answers before answers are available. They force decisions before facts are clear. And when the plan changes, they become defensive as though an unexpected event has personally challenged their authority. What is the silent belief? Nothing is safe unless I manage it. Nobody can be trusted to carry responsibility. If I cannot predict the outcome, I am no longer secure. Now listen carefully. That is not authority. That is insecurity trying to manufacture certainty. Mature authority does not mean controlling every circumstance. It means governing yourself within circumstances you cannot control. You manage your conduct. You honor your commitments. You prepare carefully. You communicate clearly. You establish boundaries. But you do not pretend that your hands can command every person, every timetable, and every result. Imagine two leaders facing the same disruption. A major plan fails, time is short, and the team is uncertain. The first leader tightens control. Every decision must pass through one frightened mind. Questions are treated as disloyalty. People become afraid to speak, and the leader calls that order. The second leader does something different. This leader clarifies the principle, assigns responsibilities, defines the boundaries, invites honest information, and identifies the next faithful action. The problem has not disappeared, but confusion no longer governs the response. One leader controls people. The other governs the environment by first governing the self. This is where integrity becomes essential. Without integrity, discipline becomes manipulation. Responsibility becomes domination. Leadership becomes the protection of ego. Integrity keeps authority aligned with truth, service, and purpose. Write this down. Surrender is not passivity. Surrender is focused stewardship. It means carrying fully what belongs to you and releasing honestly what does not do your work. Keep your word. Prepare your mind. Correct your errors. Then refuse to seize responsibilities that belong to God, time, circumstances, or other people. Ask yourself, where is my demand for control actually an admission of fear? That question may expose you, but it can also free you. True strength is not measured by how many people you can force to comply. It is measured by how faithfully you can command yourself when outcomes remain uncertain. And when control fails, as it eventually must, the next temptation is often not to fight harder, but to disappear. That is the government of withdrawal. Withdrawal is fear that has decided invisibility is safer than growth. It does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like silence used to punish. Sometimes it is emotional disappearance in the middle of a difficult conversation. Sometimes it is procrastination, an abandoned commitment, an unanswered message, or the refusal to attempt anything that might expose weakness. What is governing that response? A hidden constitution that says visibility is dangerous. Failure will define me. Rejection must be avoided. Distance will give me peace. But distance does not always produce peace. Sometimes it merely removes the voices that could challenge the fear. Now, boundaries are necessary. Rest is wise. There are moments when you must step back to recover clarity and protect what has been entrusted to you. But a boundary tells the truth and preserves responsibility. Avoidance hides from truth and abandons responsibility. One creates order, the other postpones growth. Many people built walls during painful seasons. The wall helped them survive disappointment, betrayal, embarrassment, or rejection. But listen carefully. A war can outlive the war that justified it. Years later, the danger has passed, but the wall remains. Now it is not protecting the person from injury. It is preventing trust, correction, opportunity, and healthy connection. And then they say, this is simply who I am. I do not talk. I do not trust. I work better alone. No, that may describe your present operation, but it does not define your permanent identity. You may be struggling to engage, but struggle is not identity. You may have learned to withdraw, but learned behavior can be retrained. So how do you return? First, name what you are avoiding. Be specific. Second, take one proportionate action, not the biggest action, the next responsible one. Third, communicate honestly instead of making other people interpret your silence. Fourth, remain present long enough to learn what discomfort is trying to teach you. Courage is not comfort. Courage is obedience to purpose while discomfort is still in the room. Say it. I will not confuse hiding with healing. Your history may explain why you stepped away, but it cannot be allowed to govern every step forward. Healthy retreat prepares you to return. Fear-governed withdrawal keeps extending the absence. But withdrawal is not the only way people escape responsibility. Withdrawal abandons the scene silently. Blame remains in the room, points at everybody else, and abandons responsibility anyway. Blame is the strange government that protects your innocence by surrendering your power. Listen to its language. They made me react this way. Nothing can improve until they change. My childhood decided who I would become. My failure proves the future is closed. Blame always places the key to your progress in somebody else's pocket and then complains that the door will not open. Now, we must be careful here. You are not responsible for every wound you received, every betrayal you endured, or every unjust condition you faced. Responsibility does not mean calling evil good. It does not mean refusing support, ignoring accountability, or pretending that another person caused no harm. Responsibility means identifying the portion of the future that is still entrusted to you. In the biblical account of humanity's first failure, confrontation was followed by explanation, and explanation became accusation. The man pointed to the woman pointed to the serpent. Everybody had a reason, but nobody moved immediately toward ownership. An explanation without ownership delays restoration. Here's the point. Fault asks, who caused the damage? Responsibility asks, what has now been placed in my hands? Those are different questions. Justice may require the first. Transformation always requires the second. You may not control what happened, but you can examine the meaning you assign to it. You can challenge the habits that grew from it. You can decide whether yesterday's injury will continue governing tomorrow's behavior. Blame searches for a defendant. Responsibility searches for the next faithful action. When you surrender ownership of every response, you also surrender your authority to transform that response. If another person completely controls your anger, your discipline, your peace, and your decisions, then you have made that person the governor of your life. Why give them that office? Write down these 3 questions. First, what was outside my control? Answer honestly. Second, what remained within my stewardship? Your words, preparation, boundaries, choices, and next action may belong here. Third, what will I practice differently when pressure returns? These questions give you agency without assigning false guilt. They allow you to tell the truth about what others did while also telling the truth about what you must do now. Responsibility is not punishment, it is the doorway back into authority. It says, I cannot rewrite the event, but I will govern what the event produces through me. And that government is revealed before the major decision ever arrives. It announces itself in ordinary sentences, impatient tones, careless promises, and quick impulses. Your mouth often reveals the ruler before your actions make the ruler visible. Your mouth is often the first public announcement of your private government. Pressure compresses time. When everything is calm, you can arrange your words, manage your expression, and protect your image. But when the unexpected happens, habitual language rises before public relations can prepare a statement. The heart holds an election, and the mouth announces the winner. Listen for absolute predictions. Everything is ruined. Nothing ever works. This will never change. Listen for accusations. You always do this. You made me act this way. Listen for imprisoned identity. I am a failure. I cannot handle anything. Listen for exaggerated threats, convenient excuses, and promises made only to escape the discomfort of the moment. These are not merely phrases, they are evidence. One uncontrolled conversation can injure trust that took years to establish. One angry resignation can abandon an opportunity that required one night of reflection. One cruel sentence in a relationship can remain in memory long after the argument has ended. You may apologize for the words, but you cannot make the listener unheard them. That is why restraint is not weakness. Restraint is wisdom governing strength. Not every feeling requires a speech. Not every criticism requires a defense. Not every accusation deserves your participation. Sometimes silence is not withdrawal. It is the refusal to let an untrained emotion use your mouth as a weapon. Imagine two people receiving the same criticism. The first reacts immediately, attacks the messenger, and spends the day defending pride. The second listens for truth, discards what is false, corrects what is useful, and returns to the assignment. Or imagine two employees facing disappointment. One makes a permanent decision in temporary anger. The other waits until emotion settles, gathers facts, and responds according to purpose. The difference is not the pressure. The difference is government. Before you release a sentence under pressure, establish this checkpoint. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it governed by purpose? Am I willing to live with what these words may create? Write those questions into your discipline. A pause of a few seconds can protect years of credibility. And when the same phrases keep appearing, do not dismiss them as just how I talk. Recurring language exposes recurring beliefs. Investigate the sentence. Find the fear beneath it. Renew the belief before the belief becomes another decision. We have now exposed panic, control, withdrawal, blame, and impulsive speech. But diagnosis is not the destination. We need a constructive response, a way to remain faithful without denying pain. That response is purposeful endurance. Purposeful endurance is not simply remaining in pain. It is remaining faithful to a sound principle while pain, delay, and uncertainty argue that you should abandon it. Write that down. Endurance is sustained obedience under pressure. But endurance does not mean tolerating preventable harm. It does not mean refusing correction because you are too proud to change. It does not mean repeating a failed method and calling stubbornness faith. And it certainly does not mean pretending that pain is pleasant. You can acknowledge that a season is difficult and still refuse to let difficulty choose your character. Scripture gives us a sequence. Testing creates the opportunity for perseverance. Perseverance, when practiced consistently, develops character. And tested character produces hope that is no longer dependent on easy conditions. Notice the order. Testing does not jump directly to character. Pressure presents the opportunity, but perseverance must answer. Then perseverance must be allowed to complete its work. Hardship contains formative potential. It does not guarantee a formative result. Return to the cockpit. A trained pilot does not deny the turbulence. He does not announce there is no movement while everything is shaking. That would not be faith. That would be foolishness. He recognizes the condition, follows trustworthy procedure, receives accurate information, and adapts without surrendering control to panic. That is purposeful endurance, emotional honesty, intelligent adjustment, and principled continuity. Consider two people working faithfully without immediate results. The first interprets delay as rejection. Every silent week becomes proof of worthlessness. Eventually, discouragement governs the decision to quit. The second person also feels disappointment, but uses the delay to deepen skill, improve preparation, strengthen reliability, and correct weak methods. Both experienced waiting. Only one converted waiting into capacity. Are you with me? The difference was not time. The difference was government. Greater responsibility requires more than talent. It requires a person who can remain honest when applause disappears, disciplined when comfort disappears, and faithful when visible evidence disappears. Opportunity may place weight upon you, but character determines whether you can carry it. So when the next difficult season arrives, do not ask only how quickly can I escape this. Ask, what capacity must be developed here? What belief is being tested? What discipline must become dependable before greater responsibility arrives? Say it aloud. I will not waste the pressure. You do not waste pressure when you examine it, learn from it, adjust wisely, and continue under principle. That is how adversity moves from pain to preparation. But purposeful endurance cannot remain a beautiful idea. It must become a practical discipline. And that begins when you convert the pressure event into a deliberate response audit. A pressure audit is not a courtroom. You are not putting yourself on trial. You are conducting a debrief. The purpose is not shame, excuses, or flattering yourself. The purpose is accurate learning. If pressure revealed the government, the audit helps you read the Constitution. Step 1. Reconstruct what happened. Describe the event without exaggeration. Separate the facts from what you assumed, feared, or predicted. The meeting ended without a decision is a fact. They have decided I am worthless is a forecast. Do not confuse the event with the story fear wrote about the event. Step 2. Record the first emotional signal. What did you feel? Anger, fear, embarrassment, rejection. What did your body urge you to do? Fight, escape, hide, speak, spend, quit. Record the signal without granting it authority. Step 3. Capture the evidence. What exactly did you say? What tone did you use? Did you withdraw, accuse, threaten, break a commitment, seize control, or make an impulsive choice? General language protects the pattern. Specific language exposes it. Step 4. Complete this sentence. I reacted this way because in that moment I believed. Perhaps you believed delay meant rejection. Perhaps criticism meant worthlessness. Perhaps uncertainty meant danger. Name the law that issued the command. Step 5. Calculate the cost. What did that government cost your peace, time, focus, trust, credibility, relationship, or assignment? Every ruler produces an economy. Fear always sends somebody the bill. Step 6. Identify the better governing principle. Truth over fear, stewardship over control, presence over avoidance, responsibility over blame, restraint over impulse. Do not merely say, I will do better. Name what will govern you instead. Step 7. Design a replacement response small enough to practice during the next ordinary irritation. Pause before replying. Ask one clarifying question. Remain in the conversation. Keep the commitment. Write down the facts before deciding. Step 8. Repair the damage. Acknowledge what you did without qualification. Apologize where necessary. Correct what can be corrected. Renew the commitment through action, not promises alone. And keep a short record. Pressure on Monday may appear unrelated to pressure on Friday, but your notes may reveal the same belief wearing different clothes. Repetition exposes the pattern. Are you with me? The audit turns adversity into information, information into instruction, and instruction into a plan. Now you know what happened, what ruled, what it cost, and what must replace it. But an audit can only diagnose the government. It cannot install a new one. Better government is established through renewed thinking and repeated practice. Changing behavior without renewing belief is temporary. You can force a new response for a few days, but if the old belief remains in authority, the old pattern will eventually return. Motivation may restrain the symptom. Renewal changes the government. So retraining must begin inside. Replace the false belief with truth. Rehearse that truth while conditions are calm. Practice it when small pressure appears. Review the result honestly. Then repeat. Replace, rehearse, practice, review, repeat. This is where self-discipline becomes protection. Discipline guards your time from distraction, your speech from anger, your attention from offense, your commitments from changing moods, and your future from temporary impulses. A person without self-government is like a city with no walls. Every appetite can enter, every emotion can invade, and every provocation can steal something valuable. Make the training practical. Establish a waiting period before major decisions made under emotion. Prepare language for conflict. I need time to think, or help me understand what you mean. If withdrawal is your pattern, Give a trusted person permission to ask whether you have disappeared from responsibility. And every day, complete small promises to arrive when you said you would. Finish what you started and return the call you wanted to avoid. Why do small promises matter? Because small irritations are training environments. If a delayed message controls your mood, a major delay will not magically produce stability. If a minor correction destroys your composure, greater authority will only magnify the weakness. Character is prepared in ordinary moments before it is required in extraordinary ones. This is also where integrity enters. Integrity means your belief, your speech, and your conduct agree. You do not become disciplined only when the supervisor is present. You do not become patient only when people applaud you. The private standard becomes the public strength. Write this down. A better decision becomes a practice. Practice becomes a standard. A sustained standard becomes character. And character becomes the reliable person who appears when pressure calls your name. Will you make mistakes? Certainly. But do not use failure as permission to indulge the old pattern. And do not use it as evidence that change is impossible. Admit it quickly. Repair the damage honestly. Identify what failed in your preparation. Then refine the next response. Return once more to the cockpit. Trustworthy performance during turbulence is rarely created in the turbulent moment. It is the visible result of instruction, rehearsal, correction, and repetition when nobody was watching. You are training the person who will appear under pressure. And now we reach the final question. When self-government becomes repeated and reliable, what does pressure itself become? It stops functioning merely as a trigger and begins serving as preparation. Pressure reveals the government you have today. Renewal and repeated obedience form the character you will carry tomorrow. That is the distinction. Panic exposes the authority of fear. Control exposes the absence of trust. Withdrawal exposes an identity that feels threatened by visibility. Blame exposes responsibility that has been surrendered. But purposeful endurance exposes allegiance to principle, even when comfort and certainty disappear. At first, pressure triggers an automatic reaction. But when the reaction is examined, pressure becomes instruction. When the instruction is practiced, pressure becomes preparation. And when preparation becomes character, greater responsibility no longer meets the same untrained person. This is not only about personal peace. It is about leadership. It is about trust. People do not ultimately depend on your promises. They depend on the person your habits have made predictable. They watch what happens when the plan changes, when recognition disappears, when criticism arrives, and when the outcome is uncertain. Influence grows around people whose principles remain stable while circumstances move. So I want you to make a commitment. Say it aloud. I will acknowledge my emotions without surrendering authority to them. I will examine the belief beneath my reaction. I will restrain my words, own my responsibility, and obey my purpose. Pressure may reveal me, but pressure will not define my final condition. Now give that commitment behavior. Choose the most recent pressure event in your life. Complete the audit, name what ruled you, repair one consequence. Then select one replacement response and practice it this week, not someday. This week. And perhaps you have been praying only for lighter pressure. There is nothing wrong with asking for relief, but also ask for stronger government. Ask for the wisdom to carry greater weight without losing peace, the discipline to carry influence without losing integrity, and the maturity to carry opportunity without being destroyed by it. The weakness that pressure exposes is not your final identity. The old reaction is not a permanent law. The habit that ruled yesterday does not possess an eternal appointment. A better decision can become a practice. A practice can become a standard. A standard can become character. And character can prepare you for a future your impulses could never sustain. So do not fear the next revelation. Use it. Do not hide from the next test. Learn from it. Do not merely survive the next storm. Let your response demonstrate that new government is being established within you. And when turbulence comes again, let preparation answer before panic. Let principle answer before impulse. Let responsibility answer before blame. Let purpose remain when comfort leaves. Then pressure will do more than expose who has been ruling. Your governed response will reveal who you are becoming, and your character will show who is truly in command.